Hello, so this is Minnesang, and I'm going to attempt to answer the question as to whether or not psychiatric medications affect creativity. I think you know, if you've ever been on any of these medications or known a creative person who has, that the answer is yes. The answer is yes. So as a quick disclaimer, I'm just a moody musician. I'm not a doctor, a therapist, a psychologist. I just have a lot of experience, personal experience on various psychiatric medications as someone that likes to make music. So, do psych meds affect creativity? I'm going to be glancing over to this every now and then. I'm just going to be honest with you. Because this is a lot that I want to cover. Do psych meds affect creativity? Yes, in more than one way. And there are things you can do about it to still create and still do things that you care about and make things that you can love. If you don't love them immediately, you may love them later. So let's dive into that. So, the big stinker for me for years has been Depakote. I've been on a lot of mood stabilizers, a lot of different kinds of medication for bipolar and major depression. And Depakote has been a big offender for me ever since I was a teenager, and I was wondering what is going on with my brain and why can I not make my music? So that really sucks. And I currently take Depakote, and I've currently experienced kind of a stunt in my in the music that I make. I haven't been writing as much, and it's like, what can I do about this? So what you kind of run into, or what I've run into with these medications, is a side effect called emotional blunting. So emotional blunting can be defined as the reduced affect display. What does that mean? Sometimes referred to as emotional blunting is a condition of reduced emotional reactivity in an individual. So it may seem kind of like flat, not as expressive, you just kind of feel blah. You're just not really feeling things the way that you felt them before. And if you are one who has a tendency or a history of creating from places really strong and deep emotions, then what are you working with? Like, what can you do? So these effects occur whenever the psychiatric medication in question helps you to feel better, changing your mood to ones that you are not used to, or throwing you into a period of transition. So this has been a big one for me, not really with Depakote, but with other medications. But Depakote is helpful for me. That's why I continue to take it. In this case, the pros outweigh the cons. I have continued to, in most ways, get better over the past year. And I have been in a pretty long state of transition where it's like, I don't know what I'm thinking about, because I've always ever just sang about how depressed I am, or really strong feelings associated with these really low moods and really intense feelings, really strong feelings, which for me is also attributed to borderline personality, where you see a lot of really, really strong reactions, where I can write a song that's just extremely intense, triggered by somebody like looking at me wrong, you know. So anyway, if the psychiatric medication is stabilizing your moods, this can decrease extreme moods that may have previously cultivated your creativity. So, again, you're going to see that with the mood stabilizers, especially lithium, Tegretol, Lamictal. And for me, I still get some really strong moods. I think that's the borderline aspect of it. But overall, I am more level. And I don't have as long of depressions. And it's different. It's just mainly different feeling than what I've always felt and created from. So the psychiatric medication can worsen one or more aspects of the condition that you're receiving treatment for. That sucks. The side effects, it could be working for you, but the side effects could be getting in the way of your creativity, not just emotional blunting, but other side effects of, fatigue and oversleeping and attention issues. There's tons of side effects. I spent almost a year in a complete haze while I was on Tegretol. I had no idea that it was Tegretol causing this tremendous cognitive fog that I was completely miserable in. Needless to say, I didn't write a lot of songs during that time either. So you're going to see emotional blunting as some of these side effects. And just a quick note, just because you Google a side effect that you are experiencing and you think it's a side effect, just because you Google it and it doesn't show up on drugs.com or RxList or whatever as a reported side effect does not mean it's not real and that you're not having that side effect. You may very well be having a side effect from that medication that is just a little more unique to you, and it's real. It's a real thing. It still sucks. So anyway, most of these side effects are not limited, or most of these effects are not limited to medications, but can be a side effect of any treatment, even if, let's say, or especially if that treatment is helping you. So if you are taking medications and they are helping, if you are getting therapy and it's helping, if you have achieved some kind of spiritual enlightenment or any major change that has shifted your moods, it can affect your creativity. Even if it's great, it can affect your creativity. So how do you create in a way that feels natural when the only way you've ever known to create is in the clutches of an extreme emotion? So these issues do not apply only These issues do not only apply to individuals on psychiatric medications. Anyone who is seeking to improve their mental health or quality of life and experiences a stabilization, elevation, or stimulation of their moods will possibly struggle with their creativity. So there are so many things you can do. So if you've stumbled upon this video and you're asking the big question of, is it affecting me? Is that what's going on with me? And we think maybe yes. Yes is the answer. That doesn't help if you don't really know what to do about it. And if it's hurting you to not be able to express yourself the way that you love to express yourself. So these are some things that I do. I delve into existing art that inspires me or triggers me to create. For example, whenever I wrote I'll Let You In, that was partially inspired, if you don't know, if you can't tell, by Let the Right One In, a Swedish kind of fantasy horror romance about two children, one of which is a vampire falling in love. So I watched that movie years before I wrote the song. I read the book, I watched the American remake. It was alright. It was not as good, but it was okay. And it just kind of left this dreamy, this dreamy feeling with me. I love the romantic elements of it and the darkness of it. It just kind of stuck with me. I loved the idea of feeling like you have to invite someone in for them to come in or they can't. And I really liked that. So that, watching the kind of movies that trigger you, listening to the kind of music that triggers you, gets your imagination going, helps you feel those things that feel like or seem like they're not accessible to you. Sometimes these things, these different arts that other people have created can trigger you to create. So some of my go-tos are medieval music or like neoclassical music, particularly atmospheric electronic like QNTAL and Eurielle, which I can provide links to. May not be for you, but it enables me when I listen to this kind of music to really daydream and create stories. I really like fantasy and romance anime. And like everyone's different. I really like young adult fiction, especially fantasy or horror. There needs to be romance. Anything that I get into that triggers my wanting to create has to have a romantic element. Everyone's different. Figure out what you love. Figure out what works for you. These types of media tend to throw my mind into storytelling mode, where I feel inclined to create characters and backstories, and most particularly specific scenes that these characters play out, and the atmosphere that they're in, and music that may go along with it. And sometimes these scenes make their way into my songs. So I'll meet you there in that place, the one that neither of us could agree upon. I will be there waiting anyway. So that's the kind of fantasy storytelling stuff that works its way into my music that's often inspired by the movies and anime and books that I read. So besides that, it's really important, and I learned this from DBT, or Dialectical Behavioral Therapy, that it's really important to challenge any personal beliefs you hold about your creativity. So if you think you need really strong emotions to create, I want you to know that they are not a requirement for emotional, expressive, relatable, and brilliant work. You can be okay. You can be healthy and still create magic. You can still create amazing things, even from a state of being well or level, or just not in a state of intense, extreme, it's really intense emotion. So if you're feeling if you're feeling creatively blocked, do it anyway. Do it every day. It's the hardest thing for me personally. So I understand if you're like, are you serious? I don't even ever feel like writing or drawing or anything lately. I don't want to do anything. Do it anyway. I need to practice what I preach. So I will be doing the same. Maybe we can challenge each other to create anyway. This is the hardest one for me to stick to, and probably the most important in my case. I'm officially out of a habit I've cultivated for over 18 years of playing and singing and writing, reflecting, expressing myself every day. I used to write probably 10 or 11 songs a week, every week of the year, for years and years and years of my life. So many songs. Now it's like a miracle if I write 3 or 4 in a year. And I have to work on that. Did I always write the best stuff ever? No. But every song I wrote and recorded, even a small clip of, is one that I can really cherish. And sometimes it even draw me back in to what I was feeling at that time and help me experience those emotions again, but in a reflective way and in less of a destructive or dangerous or profoundly negative way. I have poorly recorded clips of songs, videos, all kinds of stuff. I may share some. Some that I had actually forgotten about, and I was able to listen to them and watch them again and be like, oh snap, that was actually pretty good. Or that line is brilliant, I can work with that. And the thing about sitting down and doing this every day is that what you think is not going to be great, or if you're not really feeling it at the time, or whatever you write, you feel like it's a waste, or whatever you draw, you feel like it's hideous, not what you intended at all, just keep it. Just keep it. You may look back at it later and think, there's good in that. There's something good in that. and I feel it. And I feel like I can do something with it. Really what it comes down to is that you're an artist and it's your calling to create. So even when you don't feel like it, create and save it. Don't just sit down every day and do it, but save it, feel it, cherish it, appreciate it. Appreciate that you made that. And if you never want anybody to see it or hear it or look at it, then you don't have to. But it's for you to look back on and create something new and fresh with it if you want. Or maybe you look back on it and say, hey, that was great the way it was. Anyway, I hope that this has been helpful. I really like the idea of kind of a challenge, of like a group challenge to create every day. There's really good books on this. My favorite is The War of Art. I really like Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I can post links to these too. There's some really inspiring books out there that can help you too. And just don't give up. You're still creative. You're still an artist. Talk to your doctors. Talk to your doctor if something is really bothersome. Don't just tolerate it if you know it's not right, if you know it's not working out for you, or the pros don't outweigh the cons. With me and Depakote, the pros it's one of the main go-to medications for me. It's one of the only ones I can take in that class of drugs. It's one of the only ones that helps me. So I have to deal with it. I have to deal with the parts that suck. And I need to be grateful for the advances I've made in my mental health, even though this period of transition has made it a little more difficult for me to write. And what I write has been a little bit different. I'm still grateful. I'm happy for it. It's going to get better. It's going to get better for you too. The end.